Hello, everyone. Welcome to our read aloud today for Zach Sly. We're starting on page 114. So, where we just left off, we found out that Sam is going to be helping redo his mom's bookstore, is going to be the contractor, and that Sam is paying him a little bit because Sam has a project for Zach of a place that needs to get cleaned up. And he got really gross, really dirty. And part of his payment is also getting supper. And we find out that Caitlin works at that same restaurant hotel. That's where her family owns it. So he's getting to enjoy some of this Basque food, and we will keep reading for today. So we left off, I think, at the bottom here, but we'll begin at the top. So he had been he was looking for the pork chops that were coming. The last one was forked off the platter just as it got to him. Before he could show his disappointment, though, another platter of pork chops appeared over his shoulder. Zach turned. "Hi, Zach." It was Caitlin. By the time he had gotten over his shock at seeing her there, she had moved away with the empty platter and disappeared into the kitchen. "I see you know Caitlin Christabel," Sam said. "She's in my homeroom, but didn't know she worked here. Her father and mother own the place. Caitlin's been helping out here since she could walk." Caitlin came back out of the kitchen with a bowl of salad and a platter of meat for one of the other tables. As she moved across the room, she gave Zach a small smile. Zach returned it and nearly choked on the hunk of meat he was chewing. Sam grinned. "Caitlin's a nice-looking girl." Zach changed the subject. "Why do you live in a hotel?" "I'm a bachelor. My room is cleaned every day, my laundry is washed for me, and of course there's the food." "What do the other boarders do?" Zach asked. "Some of them work at the gold mine. Others are sheep herders down from the hills for a little rest and relaxation. Iker and Jacome work full-time for me. They've been here a little less than a year. They came over to earn enough money to buy a sheep ranch of their own back in the old country." "Why don't they herd sheep here?" "Well, there aren't many herding jobs anymore. Doesn't pay that well anyways. They're doing fine as carpenters. I suspect in another year they'll have enough to go home if they still want to." "What do you mean if they still want to?" "Life here is pretty good. Some of these young guys meet girls who have no interest in going back to the old country. Caitlin's grandfather, Benet Pascal, came over in 1946 with every intention of returning with a bucket full of money, but he never made it back. He herded sheep, saved his money, and met Caitlin's grandmother, and at her urging, he bought this hotel." "Does he work here too?" "No. He spends most of the time up in the hills herding sheep. He doesn't like it in town too much. He thinks it's too crowded." Zach laughed. "Elko? Crowded?" Sam smiled. "All depends on what you're used to, I guess." Anyway, Caitlin's grandmother ran the hotel and raised the family while Benet stayed up in the hills. He would come down every month or two to see what was going on, but after a while he started to worry about his sheep and he'd go back up. Caitlin's grandmother passed away several years ago and her parents took over the hotel. After a half hour later, the men began pushing their chairs back from the table and leaving. Zach was stuffed. "I'll take you home," Sam offered, "but first you better retrieve your clothes. Caitlin should know where they are. You can come up to my room and change." Zach walked into the kitchen to find Caitlin. "Can I help you?" a woman asked. He had the same color hair and smile as Caitlin. It had to be her mother. "My name's Zach Granger. I'm looking for my clothes." "I've heard about you, Zach," she said. "Your clothes are through there." She pointed at the door in the back of the kitchen. "This is Caitlin's father." "Adrian?" A man with thick black hair looked up from the stove where he was frying meat and came over, wiping his hands on a towel. "This is Zach Granger," Mrs. Christabel said. "The one Caitlin's been talking about." Zach was pleased to hear this. "Ah, the mystery boy," Mr. Christabel exclaimed. "You're new to Elko, I understand." Zach gave him the story, which was getting a little easier for him to tell. "And your mother's opening a bookstore." Elko's 3 E's, Zach thought. "With Sam and Mateo's brother's help," he said. The man flipping meat on the stove yelled something in Basque, and Mr. Christabel hurried over to give him a hand. "Nice meeting you, Zach," Mrs. Christabel said. "You're welcome here any time." "The food was really great. Thanks." Mrs. Christabel picked up 2 platters heaped with meat and pushed through the door to the dining room, open with her hip. Zach walked through the back door and found Caitlin standing in front of the clothes dryer with her back to him. "Hi, Caitlin." She gave a little jump and turned around. "You scared me." "Sorry. Your clothes are still drying." "I'm not in a hurry." She looked at the clothes Zach was wearing. "Iker's or Jacome's?" "Iker, I think. And they were a lot baggier before I ate." "The first time you've eaten Basque food?" "Yeah, and I hope it's not the last." Sam said that the meals were part of your deal with him. "I might have offered to do the work for free if I'd known the food would be so good." They looked at each other, neither one knowing what to say next. Zach broke the awkward silence. Do you live here at the hotel? No, we have a house not far from school. In fact, it's only about 3 blocks from your house. The three E's again, but in this case, Zach was glad that Caitlin knew where he lived. Do you work here every day? Just on Friday and Saturday evenings, but I'm here a lot. This is turning into a pretty good job, Zach thought. Another awkward silence followed, which was broken by Caitlin. Has Peter given you any more problems? She asked. No. Well, you better stay away from him, she warned. You're not the first person to tell me that. He hasn't been the same since his dad got in trouble. How so? For one, he used to be a nice guy. We went to the same grade school. Daryl Gill told me about his dad and the get-rich scheme. I think it's been a lot harder on Peter than his parents. Why have they stayed in town? Peter's mom and dad have the gambling bug bad. Every time they get some money, they blow it all at one of the casinos. It's kind of sad, really. They adopted Peter when he was 4 years old. I'm not sure why. They've never seemed very interested in him. I think Peter would give just about anything to get out of here. I feel sorry for him. We don't get to pick our parents or where we live. Or our names, Zach said. Caitlin laughed. That's right, we don't. The dryer stopped. Caitlin pulled Zach's shirt and pants out. I guess I better get back to work. I appreciate you washing my clothes. Caitlin smiled and walked into the kitchen. Sunday, October 1st, so it's in his slanted writing, so we know he's in his journal. I don't have much to write about today because I'm in the middle of cleaning Sam's building. The job is hard, but the pay is good. The food is amazing. It's Caitlin is about 150 feet away from where I'm working. By Sunday afternoon, Zach had managed to get most of the sawdust out of the building, but there was still a lot more to do. Surveying the mess, he figured he'd have the building cleaned out about the time he entered high school. He walked across the street to the store and bought a Coke. When he got back, Sam and Caitlin were inside the building looking over his work. It's starting to look good in here, Sam said. Now all I have to do is figure out what to do with that mountain of bagged sawdust outside. Are you ready to take a break? I just did. Zach held up a can of Coke. I mean a longer break. What about dinner? Zach asked. But what he was really worried about was missing a chance to spend time with Kat. You'll have a Basque dinner, Kat said, but this time it'll be authentic. Last night's wasn't. Basque food tastes better when it's cooked in the mountains. We're going to take some supplies up to my grandfather. He'll want to feed us when we get up there. Dinner and breakfast. No school tomorrow. Teachers and service day. We're spending the night up there? Sam nodded. That's if you want to, and if it's okay with your mom. Of course I want to. After a quick shower, Sam drove Zach over to the bookstore to ask his mother. On the way back, they stopped at Zach's house to pick up some clothes, and by the time they arrived at the hotel, Caitlin and her parents had all the supplies ready for her grandfather. As the truck pulled away, Mrs. Christabel shouted, You tell that old bear that we want him down here for a visit in the next 2 weeks, or I'm going to send a couple of boarders up to haul him down the mountain by force. Caitlin leaned across Zach and shouted back, It will take more than a couple of boarders to get that bear off the mountain. Who's the bear? Zach asked. My grandfather, B'nai Pascal, Caitlin explained. B'nai means bear in Basque. They arrived at the sheep camp near sunset. An old man wearing a weathered cowboy hat, down vest, and woolen pants with cuffs tucked into scuffed cowboy boots walked out of a very large canvas tent. When Zach opened the door to the truck, Caitlin nearly climbed over top of him to get to her grandfather. B'nai picked her up under the arms and swung her in a complete circle. A second man came out of the tent and walked over to Sam and Zach. This is B'nai's partner, Ander Toussaint, Sam said. Ander smiled at Zach, then began an animated conversation with Sam in Basque. Zach listened for a while, then stepped away and took in his new surroundings. Streaks of red sunlight washed across hundreds of sheep grazing on the steep hillside beyond the tent. A cool light breeze buffeted by the white smoke coming from the tent's stovepipe. About 50 feet from the camp was a small corral made of rough-cut trees. Tied to the top rails were 2 saddled horses. Zach walked over to get a closer look at them. He had never ridden a horse. His parents' idea of a vacation had not included horses, camping, or anything remotely related to the outdoors. When the Osborns had gone on vacation, they visited cities, theme parks, and museums, and they always stayed in hotels. This was another reason Zach was surprised his mother had chosen to move to Elko, Nevada. Sam retrieved a bundle of letters from the truck cab and tossed them to Ander, then joined Zach at the corral. So what do you think? This is great. Really. Zach pointed to the horses. B'nai doesn't use a truck or a four-wheeler? No, he believes in herding sheep the old-fashioned way. I don't even think Benet has a driver's license. How does he get into town if he needs something? He rides down to the highway and uses a phone booth to call to Nevada. One of us brings up what he needs or picks him up and drives him into town. He doesn't call very often. Aside from food, most everything he needs is up here in these hills, except for his granddaughter, of course. Caitlin led Benet over to the corral by the hand and introduced Zach. Benet crunched Zach's hand and gave him a bright smile. You are welcome at my sheep camp. Caitlin's grandfather looked like a bear. He had a barrel chest, broad shoulders, and alert eyes, the color of black diamonds. His complexion was dark, cured by years of sun and high desert wind. Benet looked at Sam. I need to check on the sheep before dark. Ander will be worthless until after he's read his letters from his sweetheart. Do you want to go for a ride, Unai? Instead of answering, Sam untied the setter reins and swung onto the saddle easily. What are we waiting for? Why does he call Sam Unai? Zach asked. It's just a nickname he has for him, Caitlin explained. In Basque, it means shepherd. My grandfather says that in his heart, Sam is a Basque shepherd, but instead of sheep, his flock are school children. He watches over us. Zach had certainly experienced that. Benet shouted something at Ander, mounted his horse, and they trotted away. What did he say? Zach asked. He told Ander that if dinner wasn't ready by the time they got back, there'd be no more wine for a week, Caitlin said. He doesn't mean it, and Ander knows it. Want to go for a walk? They walked to the top of a small rise above camp to a rock outcrop and looked across the hillside where Benet and Sam rode along the edges of the vast sheep herd. What are they looking for? Zach asked. Sick or injured sheep, strays, coyote signs, anything unusual. Caitlin started down the other side of the rise. There's a canyon down here. That's my favorite place in the mountains. Zach followed her. I guess this is quite a bit different from Oregon, she said. Zach felt uneasy. Yeah, I'm used to a lot more trees. At the bottom of the canyon, they came to a game trail and followed it in the waning sunlight. The air had a spicy smell to it that Zach had not encountered before. Do you miss Oregon? I don't know. His discomfort grew. I don't think about it much. How about your friends? You must miss them. Zach wished she would change the subject. I miss them sometimes, which was true, but I've made a lot of new friends here, which was a little exaggeration. Did you have a girlfriend in Oregon? Zach turned red. I'm sorry, Caitlin said quickly. I guess that's none of my business. My timer just went off. We will continue this tomorrow. Have a great day, guys. Bye.